I wanted to make a video discussing my perceptions of Divinity Original Sin 2. I want to start out by saying I genuinely like this game and enjoy it, despite some of the complaints I have of it that you will hear during this video. This game is definitely an improvement over the first, even though it still suffers from the same overall design flaw of the previous game. I want to focus on that aspect first and get it out of the way before I go into depth about all the things I enjoy about this game. I want the developers of this game to consider my ideas because I genuinely think they will improve the experience for all players who aren't interested in making the game as difficult for themselves as possible, and who are interested in having options when playing this game. For all the different dialogue options and classes and types of characters you can play as, with all the different ways you can approach combat when you get into a fight, this game still doesn't offer players many options when it comes to playing this game the way they want to. It's very clear to me that this game is just as linear as the first one, and that the choices you can make might tweak a few dialogue options throughout the story and may change the ending a little bit, but they don't change what you have to do to beat the game. Meaning, you still have to fight the same major plot fights, you still have to go through each area in each act of the story and try to find all the hidden secrets, quests, enemies, and locations to scrounge up the XP you need to reach the level you need to be to fight the enemies in the new locations you reach as you go through the acts that make up the story of this game. Add to that the fact that you can't go back to acts or areas you've completed after you move on to the next one, the fact that enemies are set at a certain level depending on where they're located in the game, not at all dependent on what level you or your party are, and you're forced to play this game a specific way every single time, no matter how you might want to go about beating it. It's the same problem I had with the last one. You can't just go around and explore and complete the story at your own pace in your own way. You have to go through it the way the devs made it, or the difficulty is going to increase exponentially until you have no options to continue and are forced to backtrack across the whole map to find the enemies, quests, or locations you missed that are the reason you aren't a high enough level for what you're trying to do in the game. For a game that boasts about how much choice and how many options it gives players and how much it boasts about being the most in-depth turn-based RPG ever, it really doesn't provide good role-playing options. A key part of RPGs is the ability to play them how you want. I fully expected to be able to play through the story at my own pace and in my own way in this game, just like almost every other RPG I've ever played, but you can't in this one. If you stray too far in the wrong direction, you'll hit enemies that are too tough for you to handle. This brings me to the biggest flaw in this game, the lack of spawning or respawning enemies. With no ability to grind in this game, you are forced to play through it the same way over and over again. The only differences will be what you choose to say, who's in your party, and what class every member is. An example of what I'm talking about would be after you escape from the prison island that acts as this game's tutorial. When you get to the first main map and act of the game, there are a few directions you can go, but if you pick the wrong one, you'll quickly come across enemies that are up to 4 or 5 levels higher than you. There are 2 main plot areas you have to go to, Blood Moon Island, and the Black Pits. Despite the fact that you can wander around and talk to whomever you want and can reach, despite the fact that you can awaken all of your source powers in the first act without doing either the Black Pits or Blood Moon Island, you still have to complete them in the same order. The game lets the story get as wonky as it wants, but still forces you to beat the same enemies in the same order, or risk failing and getting stuck. It's incredibly frustrating to wander around and explore the world in this game, get stuck, and find out that the only solution to your problem is to go back through all the areas you had already been, and kill some random enemies, find a quest, or hidden location to level yourself up so you can continue. Anytime you get stuck in this game, the answer is always the same: go back through the areas you already went through, and look for stuff you missed. This ruins the fun of the game for me. I don't understand why this game can't made in such a way as to allow for respawning or spawning enemies, or at the very least, enemies that match your level no matter what it is. That would actually allow people to play this game the way they want instead of forcing them to progress through the same story the same way every time. I realize it's an open world and not exactly the same kind of game as this, but could you imagine if Skyrim or other RPGs tried this? Forcing you to play through the same quests in the same order and offering you no options to do what you want? It'd be horrible. With as robust and in-depth as the combat system in this game is, I fully expected a world where I could explore and fight at my leisure and pleasure. What I got instead was another linear RPG where you're forced to trudge the same path and do the same things every time. I understand that Skyrim technically had you do the same quests in the same order and that all games technically do, but what Skyrim had that Divinity 2 is missing, is the option to do what you want in the meantime. In Skyrim and most RPGs, you can ignore the story for a bit and focus on side quests. You can complete the different story quests and separate them with side quests or other faction quests, etc. There's nothing like that in this game. There's nothing to distract you and keep you playing, other than doing the same fights over and over again. You can start a new game with a new class and fight the dude on the prison island a dozen different ways, but you still have to fight him to get the XP, because XP is a finite resource in this game. RPGs don't work well when XP is finite in them. It completely changes how you play the game from playing it to enjoy it the way you want, to playing it the way the devs want you to, because that's the only way to progress. I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but I just wish there was a way to play this game the way I want to, which is to wander around and explore at my leisure, and complete the story at my own pace and in my own way. But there isn't, because there's only so many enemies in the game, they're all at set locations, there are only so many quests, no enemies respawn, and so you're forced to trudge from one plot-based battle to the next in the correct order to avoid getting creamed, and it turns this game that's supposedly about player choice into one of the most linear RPGs I've ever played, and it's made it next to impossible for me to ever consider replaying my way through this game. I'm not a fan of linear RPGs. Even if they offer a few different dialogue options and a different cutscene or two, they still force you to do the same things over and over again just to see those little differences your choices have on the story. At which point, I usually just look up those differences on YouTube to avoid wasting dozens of hours to see a few minutes of new content, or I just ignore the alternate ending or path entirely because I don't care enough to look it up, much less waste the time to play through it again. But enough about what I don't like about this game, because despite all my complaints, this game is still worth getting in my opinion for a number of reasons. The first being, when it comes to the combat, party setup, items variations, spell options, and class options, this game definitely delivers. The combat in this game almost completely makes up for the face that I hate how much I'm forced to play through it the same way over and over and over again, doing the same quests in the same order with no deviation. You can play as a human, a dwarf, an elf, a lizard person, or an undead version of any of them. Undead are healed by poison, but are harmed by regular healing spells or items. They can also pick locks outside of combat with their bony fingers. That alone is the reason I have only ever played as undead. No need for lockpicks, and no need to worry about jumping into poison puddles or clouds. Well, almost no worry. That's because the interplay between the different elemental effects in this game is a large part of what gives it more tactical depth than any other game I played. Fire can be used to set ablaze poison puddles or clouds and oil puddles. You can put out that fire with heavy rainfall, but you'll create steam clouds and or water puddles. Those steam clouds or water puddles can be electrocuted to do lightning damage over time, or they can be turned into pools of blood or corrupted into pools of poison again, allowing the cycle to repeat itself. This interplay of elemental damages makes each environment and location of each fight more tactical. You have to worry about every puddle or cloud in the area, because the enemies know all the same things you do about the interplay of the elements and will try to use them against you too. Wanna toss a puddle of poison at one of your undead allies to heal them over time? Be careful, because the enemy might set it on fire. Don't stand too close to explosive barrels of oil, or the enemy will use that against you too. Height also provides a heavy advantage, and I find I'm always looking for the high ground when in combat in this game. The extra height doesn't just increase the range of your spells or attacks, but it also increases the damage you do with them. Another aspect I love about this game is the ability to change any of my party members' classes at any time and respec all their skill points at any time just by going to my boat after I escape the prison island. Even better than that, any of the characters you can recruit to the party can be played as the main character instead of your custom character. Assuming you created your own class. This means, you can progress the plot as any of your party members, not just your personal character. I thought it just let you split up your party to allow you to plan out tactics before entering combat and let you maneuver party members into position to get a sneak attack in before joining the fight, but it goes much further than that. The shared inventory is a nice touch, as well as being able to send anything you can pick up back to you boat. These mechanics let you send a party member who was lucky enough not to get caught in combat back to a town or your ship to buy or sell items as needed to help out your party members who are stuck in the fight. Not to mention, if they all die in combat, the fight will end, but you won't lose the game because one party member is still alive. You can have them come back and revive everyone out of range of that fight. Being able to share inventory items and send them back to the ship means you never have to worry about your people getting over-encumbered and being unable to move. You also never have to worry about leaving something valuable behind because you don't have the carrying capacity for it. Just send it to your boat, and go sell it to your merchant on the ship. Speaking of merchants, you can improve how much each vendor likes each individual party member, or just boost their relationship with whichever party member has the highest barding skill to give yourself the best discounts and get the most out of what you're selling. It's best to just boost your standing with 1 or 2 merchants and ignore the rest, as the bonuses get pretty insane and are worth investing for. None of the things I've mentioned so far are the main reason I love this game, and none of them make up for the linear story and lack of options to complete the story. There is one thing that does it, though. The mod support within this game. The developers of this game have basically made it so you can use their game engine to make your own Dungeons and Dragons style campaigns and classes. You can create your own custom enemies, characters, stories, etc. Basically everything used to make this game is at your disposal to become an incredible dungeon master and make some epic campaigns. There's even a tutorial to help you get started. That is what makes this game worth it to me, because if you're like me and don't like the story of this game that much, you can just make your own within this game's engine. Make your own campaign or mods and play this game the way you want to. I don't think I've played another turn-based RPG that allows players as much freedom when making their own campaigns and doing what they want to with the game they bought. Having so much freedom to just make the game into what I want it to be instead of what it is why I would recommend this game to anyone despite my complaints with it. If you want the most in-depth and tactical turn-based RPG you can find, this is it. And you can use it to make your own in-depth RPG campaigns if you want. That's amazing to me, and I support any game developer that is willing to let players of their game do whatever they want with that game and turn it into whatever they want it to. Larian Studios has some of the best business practices in the video game industry, and I'd like to see others emulate their model, because it is incredibly consumer friendly. And with that, I'm going to end this video. I'd like to know what all of you think, so please leave any questions or comments in the section below. And stay safe till next time. Error. Error. Error.